Hey folks, this is BestInSlot, and let's take a look at that brand new trailer for the Early Cretaceous Pack, the new DLC for Jurassic World Evolution 2. We're going to go through each of the new creatures, 4 in total, and just talk about the design and stuff like that, and see how accurate our predictions were. Just going to let it play out for this first little bit with the Kronosaurus, the Minmi, adorable, the Wahuahuahuasaurus, and the Sungaripterus. Those are your 4 new creatures. Now let's check them out in a little bit more detail. So first of all, anything new there? It's worth keeping in mind that oftentimes when you get a big new DLC for Jurassic World Evolution, or indeed for what's that there? It's a helicopter. Indeed, for Jurassic World Evolution or Planet Zoo, oftentimes that comes with a good free update. Now, the big thing I'm personally hoping for this update, which will come out on the 9th of December, by the way, would be that sandbox mode gets fixed properly. But beyond that, I don't know what else it would be. But let's check this out. Minmi, first up, looking adorable, to say the least. So, very similar, actually, aesthetically to the Euoplocephalus that we had in the last game, in that it is a more accurate rendering, really, of these kind of ankylosaurids, in that it's not like these big, massive, bulky, tank-like plates along the back, but it's these sort of horizontal, down the body moving, smaller little nubbins, we're going to call it, and they vary in size and shape and stuff like that. But what I really like what we're seeing here is, again, I think the Ankylosaurians in particular struggled with this in the past, but is the colouring, the patterning, especially around the face. It's kaleidoscopic almost in the variety of colour, and you've got to assume this blue and green patterning we're seeing here, and maybe this patterning we're seeing here along the body and down the tail as well, is the extra pattern to the base skin, which would be the sort of yellow colours and stuff like that. I'm glad that Frontier have decided to start showcasing their dinosaurs in better colours.
It's notable.
So threatening. So spooky, my little friend. Watch that again. So we can see a couple of different colours here. This one obviously is this is essentially the unpatterned version of this. So you can see the striping and the side pattern is actually still there, but it's lacking the greens and the blues along the plates and along the face. And then we've got this sort of burnt red, sort of crimson-y colour over here that then fades down into a lighter underbelly as well. And then we got this.
The only one of its kind in the
She-Roll! It is, of course, the same basic animation, seemingly, as the Stegosaurus. When the Stegosaurus does basically the same thing. I don't know if the Ankylosaurids actually do it. I haven't checked that out in my game. But we're seeing another colour here on the left-hand side. We're seeing this sort of forest green colour scheme as well. And actually here on the right. But you can see that the overt pattern over the top of the forest screen is the blue-green sort of colouring again.
While its position in
Ankylosauria
is still being debated, it'll be right at home in any
It rolled. And it actually can properly roll on its back now. Unlike the Stegosaurus had to kind of roll onto its side because obviously it's got the plates. Just watch this Minmi. I always called it Minmi, by the way. I'm going to call it Minmi because it's cuter. Watch this Minmi here by the water, right in the middle.
Is still being debated. It'll be right
roll, and then all the way onto its back. See, Stegosaurus can't do that. That's absolutely adorable. It's very similar in a lot of ways to the Euoplocephalus, but a cool dinosaur, and was on my list of dinosaurs I thought were relatively likely to get in. It wasn't in my main 5, but it was in my little bonus list that I mentioned at the end. Right, moving on. Next up is the Sungaripterus, of course, the pterosaur that... I'm just scouting. The pterosaur that introduced us to this pack in the first place. So that's actually the same one that we saw initially. And again, I really think the skull shape here, I've got to say all 4 creatures, it's worth pointing out, they're in the top sort of level for designs in terms of Jurassic World Evolution 2. All of them, I would suggest, would be in the top 10 to 20. And in terms of a Jurassic World rendering, what's still being paleo-friendly at the very least, I think they're all pretty bloody good. Just saying. I mean, Sungaripterus maybe would have some pycnofibers going on and stuff like that, but beyond that, it's pretty great. The skull shape in particular is really cool. So we're seeing a new skin colour here. Again, this burnt sort of crimson sort of colour, and that patterning over there on the crest, landing on the fish feeder. Oh, good to see how it eats a bit. Fantastic close-up look at the design of the skull and the pattern. Again, that pattern is really, really cool. It's going to be very, very hard, I suspect, to know what colour this pattern is going to be before you hatch this dinosaur, pterosaur, I should say. Please don't hurt me. Before you birth this pterosaur into the world, but I really do love the model detail here. I think it's really top-notch. And good texture work as well.
Example of the Werosaurus.
Okay, so I'm just keeping in mind how she pronounces it, because I call it the Werosaurus, admittedly as a joke, but it's just worth keeping in mind. So wait, I'm going to listen to her one more time.
A full example of the Werosaurus.
Werosaurus.
Never been found.
It's a Werosaurus.
So it's a
Looking, might be my favourite dinosaur in the pack, I've got to say. What I really like about this is, we already have quite a lot of stegosaurids in the game, right? It needed something a little bit special to differentiate itself from the others that we have, because we've got so many of them already. They've been helped a little bit already in Evolution 2 by the shrinking down of some of them, and now we've got more size variation, which helps. But the Werosaurus really does stick out from a lot of the others in a few different ways. First of all, the Albertosaurus-esque eyebrows, very unique in the Stegosaurus. The beak as well, I think. As you can see here at the front of the beak, it's got a very definite hook, a very definite point, which is, I feel, quite strong and very beak-like compared to... If you look at the Stegosaurus, actually, the beak over time seems to have been calmed down and withdrawn rather than exemplified. And here, it's a proper beak, you know, it's a proper beak, and that's really cool to see. In the eyebrows, of course, the plates are a really unusual, interesting shape, very curved and round and almost fully circular, very different than the Stegosaurus and our other Stegosaurids. And also the patterning, I'm assuming the patterning is basically just these semicircles of colour, these little half-moon Jaffa cakes we see going along the plates look so good in this double formation all the way down. I assume that's what the pattern does. You can see there's a yellow one over there in the distance, we've got this green one over here, we've got this black mottling down the side, and then nice big chunky stripes down the tail. The actual body is quite tame in terms of its pattern and colouring and stuff like that, and it makes it feel a little bit plasticky in a way, but there's quite a lot of texture there and quite a lot of detail there, and I think it's to kind of let the plates stand out.
Team returning this species to the world.
I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is this not a brand new animation? It's really weird. I mean, that's got to be a brand new animation, otherwise it's somehow missed me entirely. It's this very strange kind of stretch wherein you can see the back legs are raising up off the ground. So Werosaurus is basically doing its equivalent of a handstand, essentially, lifting up its rear body, lifting up its tail into the sky. You can see the spikes on the tail there properly on the left and the right for the first time, calling out into the air, really showcasing that beak as well, and the eyebrows jutting out to the side. We're going to look at another sort of forest green sort of coloration on the side. They've really matched the plates to the skin colours. I think it's not much of a difference. I'm struggling to differentiate where the pattern is here and where the base skin is. It's interesting. Maybe the pattern is actually more like this lighter mottling here. It's a really interesting animation.
It's a big achievement from our team returning this.
Just because the legs actually come off the ground, I really like it, and it's a chunk. It's an absolute chunk. Werosaurus has just moved very high up in my estimations. Love the beak, love that. Love this tiger striping we've got on this one down here, and this very strong red color, this crimson color over here on the right hand side.
We'll be watching it very closely.
Little animation there, you can see this one on the left hand side, paws at the ground a little bit,
very closely.
kind of dragging its foot back and forth, very cute. Now, next for the Chronosaurus. This was the one creature I was pretty bloody confident of making it in, other than Sungaripterus.
The Chronosaurus, named
This is
after
our
the king of the
plesiosaur.
Titans, remains nearly
So we've seen the pattern already there. I assume this shaping around this sort of symmetrical ink blot kind of effect along the back.
remains nearly
Looks fantastic. Yeah, again, I really like it. Looks like a Chronosaurus. I'm glad that with seemingly every creature in this pack, to an extent, they've not done anything too crazy. You know, there's no Elasmosaurus. Look, I don't mind the Elasmosaurus, as I've said, but there's no Elasmosaurus here. There's no Leopleurodon. These are fairly safe renditions of everything, and I think that's a good thing to have sometimes.
unmatched among fellow plesiosaurs. Please follow all safety guidelines while dealing
Looks
with
fantastic,
this
yeah. I mean,
dangerous animal.
you can see what I mean a little bit. I was talking about this in the last video, in that by not adding all this other stuff, it kind of maybe doesn't initially stand out massively in the roster in some ways, but I think that kind of realism looks fantastic. I think the head shape in particular is really cool. I love how it sort of pivots inwards here and displays out a little bit at the tip of the jaw, but those massive teeth erupt. They look teeny teeth, big teeth right at the end, ready to snatch up the fish, this little dude over here.
Plesiosaurs.
I don't have a good sense of the size, but it's actually quite adorable, I've got to say. It's kind of cute. And with those big black eyes. Again, I kind of felt that at the very start. If we go back over here, you can see it there. Doesn't it look really happy? It looks like a little baby. It's sort of adorable. Like the patterning, yeah, I just think it's a good-looking Kronosaurus. The head's quite long. It's longer than I would have anticipated, personally. And Kronosaurus is quite a large creature. I would have thought maybe this would be a little bit bulkier, but generally speaking, it looks really good. Really impressed.
We hope these new species
paw at the ground there.
in your park. Please
So our drone or Sungryptus, we've got a really nice little animation there. So it looks up and gurgles, essentially. You can see the Wahoo-Wahoo-Wahoo-Saurus living with the Minmize there in the background. We've got this new skin there, this sort of very pale white one as well. Werosaurus honestly might be my favourite of the bunch, so the beak is really cool. It's really nice to see a proper strong beak like this, you know? It's what we're looking for, and the eyebrows.
Species thrive in your park.
Wait for it. You see the neck shimmer and shake as it gurgles, essentially.
That may arrive.
Yeah, cool pack. Exciting stuff. I know some people are a little annoyed that it's a little bit early and people say, oh, well, you know, why was this cut from the main game and stuff like that. I've seen that comment already. I'd like to say that, I made this point before, but I'll just play this while I talk. I'm going to make this point again. New models and animation stuff aren't made in the last month or two of a video game's development, right? As soon as, you know, a few months ago, Jurassic World Evolution 2, all the dinosaurs were modelled and animated, rigged, blah, 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 blah. And then everything else is bug fixes and just tidying everything up. So there's this big swathe of time at the end of a game's life cycle, at the end of its development cycle, I should say, wherein people who make dinosaurs don't really have anything to do. You can't chuck them into the game because the game's being published and put out there and, you know, pressed into CDs and tested and quality assured, etc. But you've got all this free time. Most games will start working on DLC prior to release these days. Most like big budget games. It's just kind of the way that the dev cycle works these days. So I don't think that's a big deal necessarily. I would have loved 5. I would have loved a carnivorous dinosaur in here. I think Irritator, Utahraptor, Concavenator. There's a lot of good selections. It would have been really nice to have a carnivorous dinosaur. But it's a really good looking pack. I really like all 4 dinosaurs. Or 4 creatures, I should say, these days. I will say, I think Minmi is probably my... I think it looks brilliant, don't get me wrong. It's super adorable, but it's so close to Euoplocephalus in some ways that I think it's probably the least impactful, whereas I think Sungryptus with its really unique head shape, Kronosaurus is a nice, realistic plesiosaur, which we don't really have, and Werosaurus just looks absolutely fantastic and really does stand out against the Stegosaurids. So let me know which is your favourite of these brand new species in the comment section down below. Based on what we've seen, I'm going Werosaurus, but I'd be very curious as to your opinions. Of course, when this DLC comes out on the 9th of December, that's in 9 days time, 10 days time, it's a week on Thursday I believe, then we'll do a showcase for every single species, all that kind of good stuff that we usually do. And super excited to showcase it with you guys and to share the experience. Until then, thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you lovely folks next time. Cheers, much love as always. Bye-bye.
Reaching out.